We'll be going over gifts to charity as it relates to your itemized deductions on Schedule A of your income tax return. As you may be aware, you can deduct certain cash or check gifts to charity as well as non-cash contributions. You can also carry over previously disallowed charitable contributions for a tax deduction into the current year. So let's take a look at what we can and cannot do with charitable contributions. So, gifts to charity must be made to a qualified charitable organization. From the IRS instructions, examples may include religious organizations such as a church, mosque, synagogue, or temple, Scouts BSA, previously known as Boy Scouts of America, as well as Girl Scouts, Boys and Girls Clubs of America, CARE, Goodwill Industries, the Red Cross, Salvation Army, United Way, veterans and certain cultural groups, nonprofit hospitals or medical organizations, most nonprofit educational organizations, as long as the contribution doesn't serve as a substitute for tuition or fees, and gifts to a federal, state, or local government as long as the gifts are solely for public purposes. If you have questions about the status of an organization, you can determine that for yourself simply by going to the IRS website, www.irs.gov/TEOS. Deductible amounts may be made in cash, property, or out-of-pocket expenses. For this, you can also include mileage for driving to or from the activity, either by calculating the actual costs of gas and maintenance or by using a standard mileage rate determined by the Internal Revenue Service. This number is updated every year, so you'll want to make sure that you understand from the form instructions what the mileage rate is for the year of your tax return. You can also include parking and tolls that you may have paid in order to conduct your charitable work. However, if you were reimbursed for any of these out-of-pocket expenses, you cannot include them again as an itemized deduction. If you received a gift or a benefit from your contribution, then you must subtract the value of that gift or benefit. For example, if you donated $100 to your church and in return your church provided a meal to all participants of an organized activity, and that meal was valued at $20, then you would be able to claim a deduction for $80, which is the excess of your $100 donation over the cost of the meal. Gifts by dollar amount. A gift of $250 or more must be accompanied by a contemporaneous written acknowledgement. In other words, a written receipt. This acknowledgement must include the amount of money and a description of the items contributed. It does not need to contain an estimate of the value of items contributed, simply a description. It also must contain whether or not the organization did or did not give you goods and services in exchange for your donation. For example, if they provided you a meal as part of a fundraiser. Do not combine separate donations when calculating your $250 threshold. For example, if you tithe $50 per week to your local church, this amount will exceed over $250 over the course of your tax year. However, the church is not required to give you a contemporaneous written acknowledgement of your weekly donations. If you are required to obtain a contemporaneous written acknowledgement, you must have it in hand either before you file your tax return or before the due date of your tax return, whichever is later. For non-cash contributions of $500 or more, you must also file IRS Form 8283. If you contributed a boat, plane, or a motor vehicle, this requires a written statement containing certain information. Most organizations can use IRS Form 1098-C to report this required information. Most non-cash contributions of $5,000 or greater must be accompanied by a required appraisal. To learn more about what a qualified appraisal consists of, you may find additional information in the instructions for IRS Form 8283. Record keeping. You should keep all receipts or written records that show the organization's name and address, the date and location of your gift, and a description. For each gift, your personal records should reflect how you calculated the property's value. For example, if you had an appraisal done, the cost or other basis if you must reduce it by any ordinary income or capital gain you otherwise would have incurred had you sold the item. How you calculated the deduction if you choose to reduce your deduction for gifts of capital gain property. And finally, any conditions that might have been attached to the gift. The following is a list of items that you cannot deduct on Schedule A. Contributions that you made to the extent that you received a tax credit at the state or local level. Any amounts that you paid to a college or university in exchange for the right to purchase tickets to an athletic event, such as a football game. Any travel expenses, unless there was no personal pleasure, recreation, or vacation involved in that travel, if it was solely due to your charitable work. Any political contributions. You cannot deduct dues, fees, or bills paid to a country club, lodge, fraternal order, or a similar group. You cannot deduct the cost of raffle, bingo, or lottery tickets on Schedule A in this section. However, they may be deductible as gambling losses on line 16, which we'll cover in a different video. The value of your time or services is not deductible. Blood donations, future interest in tangible personal property, not deductible. For example, if you have a written pledge to contribute your fur coat collection, then you are not able to deduct that future interest until you've actually turned over your fur coat collection. Gifts to individuals or groups that are not for profit. So if they are operating on a for-profit basis, your donation is not tax deductible. Gifts to foreign organizations. Gifts to organizations engaged in political activities that are of direct financial interest to your trade or business. Gifts to lobbying groups or organizations. Gifts to civic leagues, sports or social clubs, labor unions, or chambers of commerce. You cannot deduct the value of benefits received in connection with the charitable donation. And finally, you may not deduct the cost of tuition that you paid. However, the cost of your tuition may be eligible for an educational tax credit if you complete IRS Form 8863. If it is eligible for an education credit, then you are better off filing Form 8863 anyway, because tax credits are always preferable to tax deductions. There are income limitations. So your Annual deduction is limited if any of the following conditions apply. If your contributions of ordinary income property exceeds 30% of adjusted gross income. Contributions of capital gains property, if that exceeds 20% of your adjusted gross income or AGI. There may be limits if you gifted property that eventually increased in value. And if you made gifts of the use of property. For example, if you donated a free 1-week stay at a vacation home that you normally would have been able to charge $5,000 on Airbnb for, then you may have a limitation to the amount of your deduction. To determine this, you can refer to IRS Publication 526, Charitable Contributions, that contains additional instructions. If there are income limitations that prevent you from deducting a charitable contribution in the current tax year, you may be able to carry over excess for up to 5 tax years into the future. That's all we have for this video on gifts to charity. If you'd like, we cover charitable contributions and much more in our article, which you can find on our website. Simply go to teachmepersonalfinance.com, type in IRS Schedule A in the search bar, and you should see our article. It covers charitable contributions as well as every other category of itemized deductions under Schedule A in much more depth. We also have separate videos for each of these categories, which you can find on our YouTube channel. If you like our articles, please subscribe to our newsletter. If you like our YouTube videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have any questions or comments, please post them in the comments section. Thank you very much and have a great day.